About 6 years ago, I was appointed by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to make sure that we, as we were in the financial crisis, that we didn't forget about the Millennium Development Goals. And I've been part of this advocacy group who has worked in very different ways, but we've all had as our main target to make sure that we did not forget about decreasing extreme poverty. And thankfully, this has been the situation. It has been a success. There is a piece of very good news here for the world. It doesn't stop here, but if we continue, we can actually take away extreme poverty completely during the next decade. So I think private sector plays a very, very central role in lifting countries out of extreme poverty. So if we want the European Year for Development to be meaningful, I think private sector needs to be at the core of this question. I think the private sector needs to continuously communicate also on development. I don't know any business leaders who are not engaged in the fact that we need to think about development and we need to make sure that poverty is not part of the next 20, 40, 60 years of this world. And here, of course, I think communicating about this is not only a question of corporate social responsibility, could be fine, but it's also making sure that some businesses get this into their core of their business thinking. I think when you look at private sector, there's been a lot of good stuff going on concerning corporate social responsibility, which is fine. But when we really think about what has made the very big change for China, for India, and what has taken out so many people of extreme poverty, it is real business. It's investments, it's education, it's making sure that people actually have something to do when they've studied or whatever has happened, that they have a workplace. And this is why private sector becomes very, very important when we talk about the coming years of development and of course specifically about 2015. I think it's pretty obvious nowadays in Europe that we need private sectors and we need leaders from private sectors to reach out differently to citizens of Europe and to talk about how important it is for Europe to work together, to stay together, to make sure that we actually guard ourselves not in a defensive way, but in a way that we can also invest and look outside of Europe. If we don't work together in Europe in the coming years, we will be left behind. US, China, India, Brazil, everybody else, fantastic for them, but we need as Europe also to make sure that we can work together. I think some private companies might think that if you say EU, you also say bureaucracy. So we'll have to find a way of making sure that businesses realize that this can be done working together without a lot of bureaucracy. There will always be some needed to make sure that we don't, that we use the money, spend the money in the right way, but that we take down the boundaries and we make sure that we actually reach out towards one another. That is definitely doable. I've seen it work with the United Nations, and I'm sure it's going to be able to be part of this as well.